It's so nice to meet you. Finally. Are we rolling, Gary? Because I don't want to.
Yeah, we can go.
Okay. It's so nice to meet you.
Hold on. Sorry.
Well,
Gary's a liar.
Gary's
lying, dude.
He sets me up.
Shut
He
up.
sets me up all the time.
Liar.
Ryan knows I'm not a liar. Get
He
outta
sets
here.
me up for this every time, and I fall
Ryan,
for it.
thank you for joining us. I know you're on vacation, so we really appreciate it.
Oh,
No, good to see
thank
you guys.
you. That's
You guys-
awesome.
No. It's just my kid's spring break. We're just down at the beach.
Oh, that's awesome. Very cool. Very cool.
Wait, you're on a vacation and you're doing this with us?
Yeah. How awesome. Right?
We're just hanging out. We're not doing anything.
That's a man move.
Yep. That's the baller move.
That's like, no, kid, we're not going to go on Tilt-A-Whirl. I'm podcasting.
No, they're. I'm sure they're doing the both. I'm sure they're
Are
doing
you guys
both.
Tilt-A-Whirling right now?
There's no Tilt-A-Whirl, but we've been hanging out all day. We had a good day.
That's awesome.
Good.
I love that. Well, thank you, man, for joining us.
Of course.
I'm a huge fan of yours, and I have been for a long time. So I'm very excited to get a chance to talk to you because I have enjoyed your work so much. I've read, I think, most of your books. I love the series. My favorite book, it hit me at the right time in my life. I needed it, was Courage.
Wow.
I read it at a time when I needed it, and it resonated. And then I also have the Daily Stoic, which, it gave me my daily dose. I put it in my morning readings. And I just find so much wisdom, obviously, from the Stoics. You turned me on. You always have these great titles of books. And you always, you used to, I remember you would hold up like, read this one, and I'd be like, I'd have to rewind it or play it back because I was trying to write them all down because I trust your judgment on this stuff. I think they're outstanding books and learning more, from meditations and a lot of that stuff, it's worded in ways that, is not digestible. And then you make it digestible. You make it very, very approachable. So I appreciate that. So having said all that, and I sorry I took so much time doing that, but I just wanted you to know how much your work means to a lot of people.
Well, that's very nice.
How did you come to this world? Where did you discover the Stoics? Because you're really an expert in it.
Wait, before you answer that, for the people that don't know, can you briefly define what Stoicism is?
Yeah, sure.
Because otherwise, for me personally,
Yeah.
I'm interested, but I don't know. I know the word.
Yeah.
That's
All
about
right.
it.
Well, Rob, first I should say that your work's pretty influential in our house. I have two young boys, so they're not old enough to watch The Hangover yet, but I did show them that clip where you tase Zach Galifianakis in the face or whatever.
Yes.
And so now, whenever anyone gets hit in the face, somebody
Looks out in the face. Yeah, beautiful. Beautiful. That makes me happy.
Yeah, so that probably happened yesterday. We were doing this all the time. Well, that's very nice. So Stoicism, I would say there's a big difference between the word Stoic and then Stoicism, right? I think, although maybe for men, Stoicism, that word has a positive connotation for many other people. It means sort of has no emotions. It means repressed. It means unfeeling. Stoic philosophy, goes back 2,500 years to the Greeks and then to the Romans. And it's basically this philosophy built around virtue. Actually the same cardinal virtues as Christianity, courage and discipline and justice and wisdom. But it's basically this idea that, there's some stuff we control and some stuff that we don't control. And primarily what we control is how we respond to the stuff that we don't control. And so Stoicism is really this idea that, okay, people are going to be annoying and obnoxious, stuff's going to go wrong, we're going to have problems and we're going to make mistakes. And sort of who we are is what we do next, like how we repair, how we fix, how we keep going, how we use this to our advantage in some way. So that's really the philosophy in a nutshell. And we could go through some of the names. You have Zeno, you have Marcus Aurelius. Maybe that's a familiar one to people who saw Gladiator 1 or 2.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a couple others. There's Cato and there's Epictetus, but there's basically these men. They were mostly men who sort of occupy the whole spectrum of Greek and Roman life, from entrepreneurs to politicians to emperors and slaves, and they're all, for all their differences, they're fundamentally human beings trying to deal with the same stuff we're all trying to deal with, which is like life just doesn't go our way.
Which is, it's so amazing too, because some things I like to think I'm trying to grow all the time, but some of the stuff I'm learning and growing and learning, this stuff, whether it's today or it was 3,000 years ago, some things don't change.
Right.
Certain core elements, whether it's jealousy, envy, lust, go down the list of, not necessarily the deadly sins, but just go down the list of some of these emotions. They've troubled humans since the beginning,
Yes.
and we still are, we're always searching, whether it's through religion, through Stoicism, through whatever, to find ways to approach this and deal with the dilemmas that have faced mankind forever.
I think one of the most striking passages in Marcus Aurelius's Meditation. So he's the most powerful man in the world, and he's writing these notes to himself. Then it sort of accidentally survives to us, like it wasn't supposed to. Somehow it does. And I think one of the passages that hit me the most, but I think hits people to this day, is this one that opens book 5, where he's talking to himself about why he has to get up early. Like he doesn't have to, the emperor could have stayed in bed all day, but he's like, you should get up, and I know it's early, but you should get up. You got this stuff to do, and he's like, but it's so much warmer here, and then he goes, but is this what you were put here to do, to just be warm under the covers? He's like, no, life is short. You have important work. You love what you do. You got to get after it, and you just go, you read that, and obviously it depends on the translation, right? Because if you read a translation from the 1500s in English, it's going to feel like Shakespeare wrote it. But if you can read a good one, all of a sudden, all these centuries fall away, and all of the weirdness of his life, to be an emperor god who owns slaves, who has an arranged marriage, like what it would be like to live in a palace in Rome, all of that falls away, and you're just like, that was me this morning. I didn't want to get up. Nobody likes getting out of bed, right?
Yeah.
And you go, okay, humans are humans, people are people, and this is the sort of self-talk that successful and wise people have been figuring out for all of human history.
Yeah. So you have to be a self-coach. There's been times in my life when I was in New York and I didn't want to go do a late night stand-up set, or I didn't want to go work on this thing, because if I really broke it down, I was afraid to. If I drilled down on it, I could say I was tired. I could say I had been up all day. I had an excuse matrix that was huge. But if I really drilled down, it was because I was afraid. I was afraid that the material wasn't good, or that I hadn't worked on it enough, that it would bomb, and that's the core of it. But I would have to yell at myself. I would have to have a conversation with myself, where I was my own drill sergeant, where I was like, why did you come to New York? Did you come to New York to go to bed early because you're tired? No, you came here to do comedy. So get your ass down there, shut up, and go do it. And I don't care if it felt like, I had to have these conversations with myself,
Yeah.
So it is, I'm sorry, I had to cut you off, Darren.
Oh, no, go ahead.
So I just love when the wisdom translates through the ages.
Yes.
And I think you've done, and you continue to do, an amazing job of harnessing that, because there is a wealth of information, and you kind of know it chapter and verse. Like, you just quoted book 5 and you knew exactly where it started, and all. Like, I couldn't do that. I mean, I have trouble because there's so much gold. It's hard to remember all the nuggets, It's
Well, I read that passage in my college apartment when I was 19 years old, and I printed it out and I put it next to my bed because, I didn't like going to my early morning classes. And so, yeah, I think one of the things that people mistake about philosophy is they think it's a thing you study in school, or it's a thing you think you have studied, as opposed to a thing you are studying. And so it's supposed to be this ongoing practice. And in fact, that's what the few Stoic texts that survived to us were. Like, one of the things that's striking about them is how much they repeat themselves. And it's because they're not talking to you. They're talking to themselves.
Right. There was journaling. There wasn't that Marcus
Yes.
Aurelius' journal? So he's journaling to himself, like
Yes.
putting his morning thoughts down, and that's why it's almost like self-coaching.
Yeah, and like us, he has like 5 or 6 of the same problems pretty regularly, right? So he's just coming back to the same issues, and the things that he doesn't have problems with are not in there. Yeah. So the Stoics might have a lot to say about them, but he specifically didn't, right? And so philosophy is this thing that you're doing. It's like a practice that you're engaged in. And so part of it is like, you think about that self-coaching, you say it and you kind of develop these scripts, and that you can rely on them in really stressful situations. And then it also kind of just becomes a muscle memory where you just know, like, hey, this is what I sort of walk through when I'm scared or when I'm lazy or when I'm, want to make an excuse, and then I just do the right thing. Or this is how I know when I've started to do the wrong thing, and then I stop myself and I go back and I go, hey, I don't want to do that, or I didn't mean to do that. And so I just think it's really important that people, like, it's not like I read the Stoics and I just memorized it. I have a recall because I've gone through it over and over again.
Repetition.
One, because I'm trying to practice it in my life, and then also because it's also my job to talk about it.
Yeah. Well, you also do. I find in your books too that it's not just limited to the ancients. You have a wealth of knowledge with regard to 20th century, 19th century leaders, wonderful leaders. I see wonderful quotes in there from Churchill and all kinds of folks that in a way it's this wonderful supporting argument, because they make the case, then other great leaders make the case, other great leaders make the case, and you realize the great thinkers throughout history, the great problem solvers, or the great leaders, they circle around the same thoughts, and they have the same approach.
Yeah, what I try to do in my books is just take the Stoic ideas and then illustrate them with stories from history or sports or literature, just things that I think people are going to be vaguely familiar with, and then go, oh, okay, so that's what they were doing, or that's sort of the underpinning for why that makes sense or why it's impressive. What is cool about the Stoics is that they are pretty readable, and so if someone wants to sit down and read, meditations, I think you're going to be able to do it. It's just, I think when people want if they're struggling with obstacles or they're struggling with ego, I just try to take kind of themes or ideas and then pick a bunch of stories from history that illustrate what the Stoics had to say about that. So, I find, I think the problem is most people, again, don't think philosophy is of any use to them. And so they're not interested in it. And what I've tried to do with my books, at least, is try to take stories and examples that, again, maybe they're going to be excited about, and try to connect it to this thing that I'm really excited about.
Well, I think for personal growth and leadership, there's no better guides and reminders and storytelling than your books. Discipline is destiny, right? I absolutely believe that. I was a Marine, so we always motivate. We're motivated. Motivation's great. Discipline is the secret, not motivation. Motivation goes away. Discipline is when you do what you don't want to do.
Isn't that true in art too? Like, there's some famous quote, I'm forgetting who said it, but it's like, the idea is like inspiration is for amateurs. And it's about like putting your ass in the chair and doing the work, like if it was about like being motivated, or that it was fun, or that you loved it, like everyone would do it, mm-hmm. or there'd be so many people trying to do it that it would be impossible to make a living doing it. It's that it's really hard, and that it kicks your ass, and that you don't want to do it most days. That's what separates sort of a pro from an amateur. Yeah.
So I think all of your books. I'm not kidding. I think I started with the Daily Stoic, which I love, and then I had The Obstacle is the Way. I have Ego is the Enemy. The last one I read was Right Thing Right Now, but Courage is Calling and Discipline is Destiny, two of my favorites. I even got The Daily Dad. I love the books, man. They're I think anybody who's going to be in any kind of leadership position, or if you just want to grow as a person, this has got to be required reading.
So I have a question.
Yes.
You mentioned that life doesn't go our way and people can be crummy, right? Just life.
Yeah.
It's full of ups and downs. In Stoicism, how does it tell you how do you deal with people who suck?
Well, it's funny. The quote the obstacle
I'm
is
just
the way.
saying.
Yeah, he was looking at me.
No,
Ryan.
I wasn't
he was
looking at Rob when I
directly
said
at me.
I'm just saying when
And now you're pointing.
when people are not cool, just in general.
Well, first off, they are not usually cool, or there are plenty of people who are not cool. And the quote from Marcus Aurelius that I built the obstacle is the way around. I made it. I sort of edited it slightly. If you look at the book, there's some ellipses in there. I made it more generally about obstacles. That he's saying, what stands in the way, becomes the way. There's sort of an opportunity and everything. What he was specifically talking about in that quote, again, he's writing this in his diary, is difficult people, who he attacks quite a bit in the book. One of the other famous passages is he goes, look, today the people you're going to meet are going to be obnoxious and annoying and stupid and jealous. And he lists like 30 other things that they're going to be. And his point is that those people are the opportunity, right? That they're the opportunity for you to be patient. They're the opportunity for you to be kind. They're the opportunity for you to be tough. The idea is people are going to be difficult. People are going to be annoying. People are going to hurt your feelings. People are going to do things. And then we have a couple of choices. Like the first choice is, am I going to be like those people, right? And so the decision to not be like those people is, I think, especially right now, sort of maybe this is an overstatement, but a heroic choice. Just the decision to just not be cruel and shitty and get sucked into this is, I think, a choice that we have. And then the idea is that we have a choice to do the right thing, even though maybe that person lied to us or was rude to us or did something that we didn't like. We have what they present is this chance not just to be sort of like virtuous in the Christian sense, like turning the other cheek, but I also think what these people do is present us a chance to, to see if we really mean any of this stuff. Like it's a challenge to rise to. When someone's going off on you or they're attacking you unfairly, like this is how you go, hey, am I someone who's easily provoked or not? This is a chance for me to show it, right? I think what these people are doing is challenging us. They're giving us resistance to get stronger against. Now, I'm saying all this. This doesn't mean that I don't get angry all the time and I don't get provoked. But that's the idea. That's how we're supposed to see other people, as something to strengthen yourself against, as something to challenge yourself with, as something to sort of use to get better and to do the right thing.
Yeah.
Is there a part? I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Is there a part of that where in Stoicism where it says, okay, once you've done steps 1, 2, 3, whatever that might be, you go, ripcord, I'm out?
Sure. Yeah. In Meditations, Marcus Aurelius also talks about, you're boxing with someone and, they're cheating and, they're gouging or they're punching below the belt. Like, on the one hand, you don't just sort of quit and go home, you give up boxing forever, but you go, okay, this person's a cheater, right? And now I have to adjust accordingly. And so I do think the Stoics, they weren't like these sort of long suffering, what's the word? Like pushovers or whatever. They were aware that people were people and they tried not to be taken advantage of, but they also tried not to get sucked in. Like, I think about it, it's like when somebody does something that I think is unfair or shitty or, makes the world a worse place, or when they do something, they take something from me, like, I usually can't undo that thing, but I can hurt myself worse by becoming like a resentful person because of it, a bitter person because of it. If I give up on all other people because of this person, right now I'm adding, there's a Buddhist story about the second arrow. I think oftentimes when we experience these things, we shoot ourselves with the second arrow of being changed by it. And so, yeah, I do think you can cut people off. Life's too short to have people that shouldn't be in it in your life.
Right.
But, I don't think it should turn you into this sort of ruthless, cruel, cynical person either.
Yeah, I think I meant just like if you are, you have a relationship with someone, whether it's a wife, husband, friend, whatever, after a certain amount of trying, I was curious if the Stoics said it's cool to just go, and cut it off.
I think so. I mean, that the Stoics probably more than any other thing talk about the shortness of life. And I think when we realize that life is short, it does it reminds us that putting up with stuff or enduring things or just going through the motions on stuff or letting people steal time and energy from us, this is like one of the silliest things that we can do because they're not making any more of it. And so, yeah, I try to be good about that. And I don't think it's just people. I think like when you think about how much time people spend on social media and then immediately complain afterwards how miserable it made them. It's like, this is a solvable problem.
Dude, that's me. I do that.
Yeah. Well, these are common problems. Like what? So one thing I notice, and your books, again, I have so many questions, but I love them. One thing I noticed, I always worry about the younger generation, like all generations. They complain about other generations, whether they're older generations or younger generations. There was one time when I couldn't stand the boomers because I thought they were bad news, right? Well, they're fine, whatever. And then, now I worry about the younger generation, and I'm sure they're going to be fine too. Yeah. But, I worry about the resilience of the younger generation, and also we have this zero defect mentality that I think is not good because the whole part of everything in the journey is the failures, not everything, but the growth for me has always come from mistakes and failures. And I feel like now that everybody's got this mindset where, one screw up and you're canceled or you're done or you're ruined. And so they quit. Or they hide, or somehow the fear has got the upper hand over the bold and the courage. And it feels like that's what we've been through lately. Maybe it was the pandemic, maybe, I don't know, but it feels like fear has had the upper hand lately. And I don't like it. I don't like it at all.
I agree. I do think about, like, if you're 18 or 20 years old, I do have a lot of sympathy for that generation because it's like, show me some period in that kid's life where the system has been working, where like where things have been going well and the adults in charge haven't been just screwing it up in the most like egregious, unaccountable ways you could possibly imagine. So I sort of do understand some of their cynicism and their frustrations. And then I also go, maybe we're thinking about it the wrong way, that this generation's soft and weak. I mean, that they're still here, that they care is probably a good sign, Yes. Not that it's been, I'm a millennial and it's not been so great for our generation either. Although, what generation would you say really has had it well, maybe other than the boomers? Although a bunch of them had to go fight in Vietnam, so it wasn't so great there either. Like, there is something timeless about our tendency to look at each generation and go like, it's all falling apart, and maybe it is, or probably it's not. And so I just,
it's probably not. It's
probably
just
not.
I think the fear gets the upper hand. I've been studying that. I really do think fear is the enemy.
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course. It doesn't help, it's like, it might be a scary situation, but the fear is not going to help. You either have to do something about it or you don't. And I do try to think about, because it's like the 5-year anniversary of COVID, right? And you're just like, if you had said to anyone like, hey, here's what the next 5 years are going to be, they'd have been like, no way, man, I can't do that. But you did all right. Pretty much everyone did okay. I mean, it's obviously tragic. I'm not trying to make light of it. I'm just saying, like, we all thought we couldn't, there's no way we would have said, oh, I can handle that. And like things, we made it through. And so I do think we should take from the experiences that we've been through a sense of our ability to get through things. And yet, for some reason, we kind of approach every change, every bit of uncertainty, every piece of bad news with like oh my God, what am I going to do? And it's like the same thing you did last time, which is figure it out. You're going to figure it out.
Yeah.
Do you think wake up, you're going to have breakfast, you're going to figure it out.
Do you think the reason it feels so much more heightened for my generation and the millennials as well, but is because of social media?
I think it's social media. There's also just so much information, right? Like everyone's like telling you what everything means and and where it's going to go. And it's like, I don't know, if you were in the middle of the Depression, you were just like in the middle of the Depression. You weren't getting like breaking news alerts about every piece of bad news from the Depression. You were just like, man, stuff's expensive and I don't have any money. You were just in it, And I think that is like, oftentimes when you're in tough situations, there's two things you can do. You can zoom way out or you can zoom way in. And it's usually some version of that helps you through it. But I think we just have so much information about everything and it kind of overloads us. I think people read and listen and watch way too much news and they don't read enough books. Like you'd be better off just reading about something from 500 years ago and just being like, okay, this is what life is like. This is how humans work. This is what it is. Nobody gets out alive. And there's assholes along the way, but there's also greatness and kindness and, all these other things.
I must be a Stoic because that's how I feel. Like we're here.
Yeah.
I'm trying to make the best of it and I want to be happy and I want the people around me to be happy and thrive and enjoy my time here. And that's like the long and short of it for me.
Yeah. Well, I think you are a Stoic. You just probably have never explored it deep enough to I think you're a Stoic.
I am a Stoic.
I know.
All right.
There we go.
Chalk one up. Let's go. Because really, I mean, dude, I don't know that we were all meant to know what's happening in Nigeria at this moment in a tiny village where there's a war. Like, I got, there's so, like you said, Ryan, there's so much information that, it tends to distract people from their circle of friends and family. Like I have people I know that are, so concerned with AI or so concerned with, current events and world events that it's like you're missing the giant plate of a hot turkey dinner right in front of you. You're not looking at it or smelling it because you're focused over there.
Well, I used to give my kids, I have a teenage son and I have a junior in college, a junior in high school. And, the boy was a scroller, right? Same with the daughter for a while, but she's busy now. College has got her working again. But I kind of was like, oh, look at him scrolling. And now I scroll and I found myself wasting so much time that I had to put a time limit on the thing. So it shuts off after a while, or it tells me, it locks me out after a certain amount of time because I didn't realize how consuming I was getting
addictive.
A dopamine hit or something, but I found myself just lost in this. Yeah. And it happened so fast.
You don't even realize it.
Yeah, I mean, it made me feel a little bit out of control. And you're 100% right. Like I would much rather read a book. I would much rather spend my mornings doing my readings than scrolling. But I still have an hour a day.
I know,
and
bro.
I usually burn it up if I'm being honest.
I know.
I put it on my wife's phone, so I have to be like, "Hey, can I borrow your phone for a second?"
That's
great. And then she's like, "Give me that back,"
Yeah.
And so I think it just shouldn't be in reachable. Like whenever you're bored, whenever you're feeling empty, that's not what you want to fill you up, I think. And
I agree.
And just also realizing, a lot of the people you're getting this information from are not people you would trust in any other circumstances.
Totally. Total nitwits. My dad his big saying, because my dad, he would be out working in the yard or something, and he'd come in and, what are you doing? Because why aren't you out here? And I'd be sitting there on the couch, brain dead, watching TV. And of course it was some blow 'em up, shoot 'em up movie. And he'd look at the TV and he'd look at me and he goes, garbage in, garbage out.
Yes.
Garbage in, garbage out. That was always a big saying. He goes, it's going to warp your mind. Now get out here and rake leaves. So I would go rake leaves. But now, take that from the 80s, take it to now. It's true. Garbage in, garbage out. I'd rather read a book that makes me, I don't know, better in some way.
Or it is entertaining and not pretending to be anything sort of other than what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. But again, sometimes we're really hard on ourselves. There's this quote I love. So Blaise Pascal is a philosopher in the 1500s. And he said, all of humanity's problems stem from our inability to sit quietly in a room alone. And he said that 500 years ago,
Wow.
And so you're like, okay, humans have always had this tendency and we've never been good at it. It's all supercharged now. But I think this is just a human tendency that is, is enabled by technology, and you have to find ways to counteract it. And, I think, I think one thing I've thought a lot about is like, how do I end my day and how do I start my day? So is the phone the last thing that I look at? And then is it the first thing that I look at? That's a
so
bad way to
interesting.
Close it and a bad way to open it. Right.
Yeah.
I'm with you because of you, I have a morning routine. I have my mornings. I get up early. I get up usually around 5:30 or 6, usually 5:30. My body clock goes off now automatically.
Yeah.
I'm just up. And I go in and I do my daily readings. I have a couple things that I like to read. And then I study Polish because my girlfriend is Polish. And so I'm starting to try to learn, but I spend 30 minutes a day on Polish. I spend 30 minutes a day on my readings. The one thing that I am embarrassed to say, but is true, I'm not journaling. And I know that that's supposed to be incredibly beneficial. I'm just not doing it right now. I probably should. Would you recommend journaling?
I would. I mean, I think if you're taking time to sort of think about these things in the morning, having a sort of discussion about them is just a way, like talking to yourself about what they mean is kind of how I would think about it. So it doesn't have to be in a journal. You could just be scribbling on those pages, what you agree with, what you disagree with. Like what I like is I have a bunch of like one of the books I read every day. Tolstoy wrote this book called The Calendar of Wisdom, which is like a collection of like quotes and little meditations. There's also one I've been reading called Zen Parenting that I like. There's just like I love the format of like just read this one chunk of every day. But what I like is that when I'm marking stuff or I'm writing little words or whatever, I'm underlining. I like when I come back to it a year later. And I go, oh, okay, that's what struck, So there's something about journaling and then the re-engaging with it that's great. But I do a couple different journals. One journal I like, it's in the other room, but it's called the 1 line a day journal. And it's like one little section. There's ironically more than one line on each thing, but it's got 5 slots. And so you do it for 5 years. I'm on my 9th year of this journal. And so because I'm on my 2nd one, but so you write something about like, I usually write like something I did or something that struck me about that day or what I'm going through. And then, the first year was whatever. The 2nd year was cool. The 3rd year was cool. And then years 4 and 5, you're like, here's where I was on March 17th, 2024, 23,
Yes.
22,
That's cool.
21. And you can kind of see just the rhythms of life. And also how you're kind of still dealing with the same things always.
I like that. It's called the 1 line a day journal.
Yeah.
Okay, I want to get that.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm going to do that.
Thank you for buying one.
It's the easiest
for me.
one. There's different ones. There's like one sketch a day, or there's one like a parenting one where you're supposed to like record a memory and then give it to your kids.
But you're right about that. You're right about, because I did keep journals in my life. I've kept journals. I'm just not disciplined about doing it every morning because I feel like I have to make these massive entries. But I do. I've gone back and looked at journals from when I was in Afghanistan or when I was in Liberia or when I was in different places. And it is amazing to go back and read what I was thinking at the time, what I was focused on, what I thought was important, what was my mindset back then. It's just interesting. I do appreciate being able to go back and look at some of those things.
I wish I could. I've never, ever, ever journaled. Really? Never.
Ah.
And hearing, your guys' experience, I I'm going to do the one line a day.
think-
That's cool.
I want to try the one line a day. I appreciate that. I think that's amazing.
Yeah,
So tell me. Oh,
Do
go
you
ahead.
think about? I mean, do you have notebooks that you write your jokes in also?
No, because I do have a pad, a yellow pad
Yeah.
that I keep on my desk, and I write down ideas and premises, and I write down more script and tell that kind of stuff
Yeah.
more than jokes, because I'm kind of out of the stand-up game, so I don't jot down those anymore. But I do write down sketch ideas and script ideas a lot,
Yeah.
and then I flush them out, and it's kind of fun too because I'll come back to them. A month later, a week later, I'm like, what the hell was I thinking there?
Yeah.
Like, no, or I'll see it and I'll be like, actually, I still like it. So then I'll drill down on it more.
I also think the process of writing it down helps either you understand what you were thinking, it makes it immediately clear that there's nothing there, right?
yeah.
Or you go, oh, actually, and then you kind of get excited and a whole bunch of stuff happens. I do think it's just, the idea is like, if it's just bouncing it around in here, the chances of you remembering it or it going somewhere is probably low. And I think the process of writing it down. So like I do all my research and stuff longhand instead of, just
I've seen
kind of
that.
copying and pasting.
I've seen that. I don't know where I've seen it, either on your podcast or, what you do. I've seen where you have a huge table and you have like 3x5 cards in different piles and then you assemble in a way, don't you?
I have some. Yeah. So like I'm doing a talk at the Naval Academy next month, and I had an idea this morning. So like this, I started sketching out like
There you go.
the sketch of the talk. So that'll get, I'll if I just said, oh yeah, I'll remember that. That's what I should talk about. There's no way I would remember, And so, but then when I started to write it down, a bunch of other ideas happened, and then I'll sort of use this as the basis for that thing later. So I think notebooks, journals, note cards, it doesn't matter. But the idea of just like writing it down and working it through. When you read books, do you write in the pages of the books? Like
I highlight, and then I do have both. I have a pen, I have a pencil, and a highlighter. I like to highlight. I put X's by passages that I want to remember. I highlight like lines that I definitely don't want to forget. And then if something resonates with me, but it's a one-off thought from what's here, I'll usually highlight it, but then I'll put an arrow into the margin and write something in the margin like what the one-off thought was.
Well, they call that marginalia, and I feel like that's just a form of journaling too. You're just not doing it in a journal. And those books, like you could take down those books off the shelf and it would be who you were in that moment, what you were reacting to. And so I think that's valuable too. Reading should be a conversation. It shouldn't just be like, okay, it's not a one-way thing. It's back and forth.
I've heard that as a quote that, someone asked a question, what is thinking? Thinking is asking and answering questions. That's what thinking is. So when I read, if it makes me think, if a question pops in my mind, then I need to answer it, and at least best I can, or speculate on an answer. But then the beautiful fun, it's like, searching for gold, because then I'll speculate on what the answer might be, and then I'll keep reading and maybe find it,
Yes, totally.
So.
And also, I think if you're only agreeing with what you're reading, you're probably not reading widely enough and challenging yourself enough. You should be reading things that you disagree with, stuff that you dislike.
Yeah.
And also,
that's not easy to do. That's
no.
That's
and
that's
you
a
should
good
also
challenge.
know more than the author sometimes. Like if you only I like to read about things that I know enough about that I go, that's not right. It's more complicated than that. Or what about this? You should be that should be part of your progress as a person, is that you start
Challenge
to
the
be able to push back a little bit.
Yeah. Now you have a bookstore in Austin, Texas, which I always enjoy watching you walk through, because one, the store looks beautiful.
Oh,
I'm gonna get there someday.
Yeah, come do the podcast.
Yeah. Oh my God, in a heartbeat. I would love that. My daughter goes to school down in Texas, so when I get down there, I want to extend one of my trips down there and just pop up to Austin, or pop down to Austin, I guess. But I want to spend time in that store, because your store looks beautiful. One, two, when he walks around the store, Darren, just we walks around the store, and he knows where everything is, and he'll pluck. He goes, "You got to read this. You got to read this." You know, and he'll just, the guy whoever's with him has got a stack of books, and it looks like the best books you've ever even heard. And I've never heard of half of these, but I'm always trying to write them down because they just sound like gold mines. And then immediately I go to Amazon and I order them. I've got so many books that I've even had to put a break on myself because I'm so far behind that I've got books stacked up under my desk, on top of my desk. I don't have enough bookshelves. And my girlfriend's like, you have to read them. No more new purchases until I see this cleared off. So how long have you had the store?
Speaking of the pandemic, we started construction on the bookstore the first week of March 2020.
Perfect.
I mean, what timing?
Perfect.
Oh my gosh.
So it was, it was like that thing in Arrested Development. I think I've made a huge mistake. That is just like that, just over and over again for a year, basically. So it opened in 21, and it's chugging along. And the reason I know where all the books are is that we don't have that many books. So like your average bookstore, like a bookstore our size, should have about 10,000 titles, and I think we have maybe like 800 or 900. It's only books that we like.
Oh, good.
And that's
if
the
the books you like, they're going to be books I like. I know for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
No, but it's been really fun. It's been really cool to have like a physical place. And part of it was like our house was also overflowing with books. And so we're like, let's have like an office where this stuff can go.
Yes.
And all my notes, everything's there. So it's kind of like my headquarters, and then it happens to also support a bookstore.
I love that. So it's a bookstore, but it's also your laboratory.
Yeah, it's like where we do the podcast studio. It's where people want signed books, I sign them. Yeah. And then it's also where I just store all my junk,
Do you have a reading list that you put out that you're like, hey, if you want to know more about this, go here. If you want to know more about this, go here. Do you have anything like that?
That's actually how the bookstore started. So maybe almost 20 years ago now. It seems insane. But I just started, like when you start in any kind of entertainment business, whether it's being a writer or a comedian or an actor, they're like, you got to have an email list. And I'm like, why would anyone subscribe to this email list from a person they've never heard of? Like, that doesn't make any sense. Where are people going to hear about this? So I started this thing where I was like, I'll just recommend books that I like. So it won't really be about me at all. I'll just recommend books that I like. And so I started that many, many years ago, and it kind of grew into this whole thing where I would just recommend books because that's what I love doing. And then, every once in a while I'd be like, and you might like this one that I did. And people would be like, okay, fine, we'll give it a chance. And so the bookstore was really an offshoot of that. I had this, relationship with people for this, I guess at that point it had been almost 15 years where I'd proven that I had pretty good taste in books. And then so we started the bookstore sort of off the back of that email list.
That's fantastic. I mean, that's
awesome, man.
That's good. Are you think you're going to be a Stoic?
I am.
Yeah. Are you going to drill down on it now?
Yeah.
Are you going to start to get more into it?
I'm going to dive in.
Get on this book club.
I'm gonna that's no BS. That's not me saying it because we're here. I am interested.
Yeah.
I am interested because
you're in a moment in your life too where I think you want to grow. You want to have deeper understanding from our conversations.
I live in Boston now, and Boston weather will make you want to grow.
That makes you want to stay inside and read.
Yes.
Yeah. No, I get you on that.
Yeah. So yeah, it's awesome to hear, and it's awesome to learn from you.
Yeah.
I appreciate it.
Thanks.
Hey, where can people go to see your stuff? They can go to ryanholiday.net.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And they're on Twitter if you go to @RyanHoliday.
Yep.
Also,
Rob,
his books.
I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Okay, I listened to you when you were on Pete Holmes, and I was thinking it was really funny, and I thought there'd be so every day I also do this email I do the Daily Stoic email, and then I do one for Daily Dad. And Pete was talking about how he had met you right when he was having kids, and you gave him this weird piece of advice.
I don't remember saying it, but I remember him saying something on the podcast about it.
Yeah, you said he said that what you said was nobody cares about your kids.
Which sounds awful.
It's true.
And it sounds like, but I think I was trying to prep him because I think when I would talk, at least unfortunately in Hollywood, when I would bring up my kids, the room turned cold as ice. And I remember thinking, what happened? You know, like, and I was like, what? I didn't understand because I was so thrilled by whatever I was talking. My daughter's selling Girl Scout cookies and she's #1 in the troop, and and I would start talking about that, or my boys playing flag football, or and you could see the blood drain out of their face.
You just get a cool story, bro.
Yeah, and I was like, okay, I guess don't talk about this. For some reason, it bums you people out.
Right.
So I was like, whatever. So maybe I did say that to him. It seems very cold-hearted, though. I didn't mean it in a bad way. Because I love stories about kids and stuff, but maybe I was saying it in a professional way. At least in this town.
It's kind of true, though. Like, it's kind of true. No one cares about your kids
as much as you do, obviously.
Right.
I think, what I had taken from it, so I wanted to see if I was misreading the story, but I think it's the idea is like, nobody cares about your kids as much as you do, and because they care about their kids. And so you think you have this super relatable thing, and they're like, what? Like people like being asked about their kids, right? They don't want to hear about your kids.
I think that's what it comes down to. I mean, yes. I know it sounds, like very base human behavior, but at the same time, I think it's true. It's just true. And it's because when you're a parent and you're trying to build a career or build a business or do whatever, and you have a spouse and you have children, you're overwhelmed. You're just overwhelmed. I got time to transmit. I do not have time to receive.
Right.
I think is what it comes down to. Sadly. But then it's so funny because once you start to, get through the mud of this, and maybe the career's going well, hopefully the relationship's going well, but the kids are growing, things are happening. Then all of a sudden you do find yourself being like, tell me about tell me how the kids, what's going on with them, and you're genuinely interested at that point, but not when you're in the muck, not when
no.
No,
I actually thought it was good advice because it can be easy, you see like someone, it's like they have kids, and then all of a sudden they're like the kids guy, right? Like all their stuff is about kids, and because it's like it's swallowed your whole life, and so maybe the advice was also like, you still have to perform your job. You can't be, you gotta find stuff that works for everyone, not just people in the exact predicament you're in at this moment.
I also kind of noticed it too. This is a little bit unrelated, but a little bit related. I had a very famous director one time who I've been friendly with. I've done several movies. We're very friendly, and I was going through a very difficult period in my life, going through a divorce, some just ugly stuff, and he asked, how you doing, bud? And I said, well, not so good, and I lamented, because I was in a vulnerable, weak spot, I guess, and I just was kind of lamenting, and I think he served it up a little bit cold, in my opinion, but he goes, yeah, well, the thing is nobody really cares about that stuff.
Oh, God.
And I was like, yeah, you're probably right. Anyway, let's talk about the script. I realized,
being friendly. I didn't actually want to know.
Exactly. I think that's what it was. But the way he said it was like, yeah, nobody cares. Anyway, let's talk about the work. And I was like, yeah, let's definitely talk about the work. Let's not talk about this anymore. But I realized, yeah, these are and again, it kind of put me back in that stoic mindset. Like, you know what? These are my things, and I'll deal with them, and I'll need to trust the people to talk to, and I need to, it was kind of a lesson, I didn't get butthurt about it. I wasn't wounded, but it was kind of a shot over the bow, which was, okay, let me handle my business, and I'm not talking about that right now.
Yeah, there's a fine line between boundaries and being repressed, and it's hard to know. You're like, I'm trying to open up and trying to share. And then people are like, bro, what are you doing? Like,
right.
This is a Wendy's or whatever.
I do think.
Yeah, I don't even know. Who are you?
It's tricky. It's tricky for everybody. It's not a gender thing. It's tricky for everybody. But I think we get a lot of mixed signals, be vulnerable, be vulnerable, be vulnerable. Okay, here's my best attempt at it. Shut up, shut up. Okay.
Right. Don't be so cold.
So then I read about the Stoics, and I'm like, I'm going to handle my business like Marcus Aurelius,
Yeah.
So
that's what the journal's for. It's like, this is where you have it's not going to judge you. It's not going to criticize you. It's not going to push back, and you can be as crazy as you want to be, and no one will ever know.
Right. Yeah. No, I think there's so much wisdom in the work you've done, and I'm a huge fan, and I'm very grateful for the work you've done. Keep doing it. Keep doing more. Yeah.
Well, this is very cool for me, and let me know when you're in Texas next. I would love to.
100%. I'll load you up. I'll give you as much advance notice as I can.
Please. All right.
Because I definitely want to come see the bookstore, do the podcast, and just hang for a minute or two. That'd be awesome. Hey, thanks, Ryan, for taking time out of your vacation.
Thank you.
Please
guys.
thank your
Appreciate
family.
it.
Thank your family for us too, for letting us have you for this time.
I'm sure they did not miss me. So
they're like, wait, what did you? We thought you were here the whole time.
yeah.
Hey, thanks again, Ryan. We
All right,
appreciate
see you
it.
guys.
Take care.
All right, bye.
Take care. That was awesome.
Dude, I'm a stoic.
Yeah, I think you are a stoic.
Yeah, I think I
I really do, because when we play golf, I hear you talk and I hear your mindset and I hear when you have a problem how you approach it or what your thought process is about solving it.
Mm-hmm.
And having read his stuff and I'm like, yeah, you have a very pragmatic, very stoic approach to things. So
Thank you.
You are that without even knowing it. And now when you start reading more and more about it,
Yeah.
I think your wisdom's going to shoot through the roof.
I'm excited.
Yeah.
I'm actually really excited.
Yeah.
That was cool, man.
That was awesome.
I'm not so sure.
Well, that's scary though.
It was such a nice podcast. It was so good.
You thought Gary's in fuego right now.
I know.
And he's not going to let anything slide.
Gary's got a hot target on my back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to say no to Gary, okay? Because it's Gary's thing.
Yeah, no, Gary's doing what Gary does.
Claire's flipping me off.
I know, but she's looking at me going, yes.
Yeah, so you're getting the power to the people.
Yeah.
I'm getting the dirty bird.
Yeah, and I'm getting verbal scud missiles chucked at me.
Yeah.
You know what, though? I can take it. You know why?
Because you're a stoic.
That's
Come
right.
on.
Come
there you
on.
go. Hey, everybody, this has been Riggle's Picks. I'm Rob Riggle.
I'm Darren Leader.
For Gary and Claire, thanks so much for joining us.